So let's face it, the gas industry is probably in its gloomiest condition for about 30 or 40 years. There is no growth at all in Europe. There is a slower growth than expected in many emerging markets. Only a few bright spots. Lot of uncertainty about the impact of, for example, global warming policies, which is far from clear, so that, for example, the industry itself is split about what the impact, and the industry itself doesn't know to what extent it should support carbon policies in its own interest, of course. Well, on the other hand, if you look at the old stories that we've been discussing for the last 10-15 years in Europe, we see that these are far from solved. For example, we are now in the implementation stage of the European Network Code, and there are already complaints that several member states are actually developing markets, for example balancing markets, in such a way that there will never be a real single market for gas in Europe. Actually, some people could even think in the back of their minds that this is not so bad, because a properly competitive European single gas market would probably put further downward pressure on prices. And this is what the industry doesn't really want at that stage. And even those parts of the industries which are more protected, like for example transmission and distribution system operators, start being worried, because at some point this demand decline may hit their incomes as well, and their protection cannot last forever probably. So there are a lot of new difficult situations to be analyzed, difficult conditions, but at the same time I would like to remember that these type of situations are just the situation where there are lots of opportunities. For example, for mergers and acquisitions, it's the best time for acquisitions. It's the best time to buy companies which are in a relatively better condition. And also that's a challenge for regulators, of course, because regulators are not used to dealing, especially modern European regulators, have been dealing almost always with a growing, sometimes fast-growing market. And they are facing quite different challenges in this situation, which we are going to discuss.